Leyton, Orient and Birmingham City push Premier League opposition close in the FA Cup, while Shrewsbury claim a scalp and Bolton leave it late in the league. Welcome to the League Lowdown. Hello and welcome to the League One Lowdown review episode with myself, Seb Jones, joined as ever by Jamie Johnson. A slightly different week this week in that we've had a few of the League One clubs involved in the fourth round of the FA Cup. So we'll be covering that to start with before moving on to the league fixtures that took place. Jamie, how's your week been?
It's been all right, actually. It's been a little bit of a busy one, but it's we're recording it on a Sunday. It's been a very nice sort of chill Sunday before recording our podcast here today. So yeah, so it's been a nice few days. How about you? You've been away, haven't you?
Yes, I have been away. Yeah, went to Milan for a few days midweek. Not necessarily League One related, but on Tuesday night I was at Oldham versus Rochdale, and then on Wednesday night I was at Milan versus Rome. So a bit of a football site. Exactly, chalk and cheese. Well, yeah, away from League One for a change, but nevertheless, sort of good to experience football elsewhere. But yeah, I had a lovely trip across to Italy just for a nice getaway with some of my friends. So yeah, nice to be back. And yeah, the weather's so much nicer abroad, but isn't that given with the UK at the minute? But yeah, all good. Good to get cracking. Like I said, plenty of action in terms of matches involving League One clubs, some in the FA Cup, some in the league. We'll start with the FA Cup, and we'll start with what almost could have been for Leyton Orient. They had a tough tie of the current Premier League champions, Manchester City, at home, and it started so well for them, Jamie, but they just weren't quite able to hold on with that.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I mean, I watched the first half before I headed out to the Lincoln game, which obviously we'll talk about later on, and they were really they were probably the better team in that first half. Obviously, they took the lead with that sort of bonkers goal that went down as an own goal off the keeper Ortega in the end. But it was very even first half. They didn't look like a League One against a Premier League side sort of game. They played really well first half, as I say, went 1-0 up, and then it sort of that quality showed, didn't it? Second half, Kevin De Bruyne coming on, he scored the winner in the end, but they gave him a real fright. And they gave them a real scare, and they pushed them, as you mentioned right at the top, Seb, that they got very close to causing an upset, and it would have been perhaps the biggest upset we've had in the FA Cup for a good while. So they've done absolutely superbly to push them as far as they did, and Richie Wellens set up his team really well, and they delivered that special moment in the first half, and it's a really good account for Leyton Orient, putting themselves, some of them players, that Richie Wellens on the shop window, if you like. And that they, as I say, made a good account of themselves.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And we can't really look anywhere apart from that first goal they scored Leyton Orient. Opened the scoring. I think sort of not quite what anyone expected in terms of them opening scoring in the first place, but also not quite people expecting with that goal from distance, over 40 yards out. What a strike!
Yeah, it was unbelievable, wasn't it? He sort of just let fly. I mean, I don't know what the keeper's doing. Like, why is the keeper not on his line? But regardless of where the keeper is, it's an unbelievable effort and hits the bar, bounces in off the keeper. That little bit of luck that they absolutely deserved, because it was a really sweetly hit shot on goal. And it was that sort of jubilation of that couple of minutes, wasn't it? I mean, I know the video, the celebrations going around, is that the steward in the background with his hands on his head. I don't know if you've seen that sort of specific part of the clip, but he's sort of epitomizes the whole ground. Everyone's sort of shocked and jumping around, and it was just lovely to see that sort of thing. I'm obviously a Doncaster fan. I'm there tonight, probably by the time you listen to this, for the Crystal Palace game, and that's what you want from those games. But you don't expect to beat these big teams. You just want that glimpse, that hope, and that moment of going in front or scoring a goal or making it look like we might do this. So yeah, absolutely fantastic for them. And Leyton Orient, it's a great advert for them and a great advert for League One football, really, because they made themselves look a really capable team. And obviously they have been over recent weeks in the league, as we've talked about, but they did themselves really proud, I thought, in defeat.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Jamie Donnelly with that that long range effort that just unfortunate that it's come off the keeper and gone down as an own goal rather than his goal. But we mentioned there earlier just the quality of City too much, I think, in the end for Leyton. And when a player like De Bruyne comes off the bench here, it doesn't look great for you, does it really? And Stones and Silva all off the bench as well, plus Foden. These are quality players that
international players, isn't it?
Exactly, week in, week out, deliver in the Premier League. So we can't be too harsh on Leyton. But fair play for giving that fight and pushing City. But yeah, opening and scoring, and what a goal it was as well. In terms of the other League One teams involved in the FA Cup, there's a great game here between Birmingham and Newcastle Saturday evening kickoff, and Birmingham, similar to Leyton Orient, sort of pushed Newcastle all the way. This one a bit more of a cagey affair, but we're just edged out in this one.
Yeah, I mean, what a game this was. I mean, I say I caught the first half of that before I went to the Lincoln game. I caught the second half of this by the time I got back, and it was unbelievable. They sort of, every 5 minutes, someone was crashing into the advertising hoardings that were really, really tightly to the pitch. And there was yellow cards every 2 seconds. There was just here, there, and everywhere. There's so much, just an action-packed game is how you describe it. I said it was a box office game in my notes. And just a proper game. The intimidating atmosphere of St Andrews was sort of on display tenfold. It was like a cauldron, really. And Newcastle just about escaped with a 3-2 win. They made a really good account for themselves, as I said, Leyton Orient did. Birmingham, obviously, I mean, they're basically a championship side anyway, with the players and all that sort of attitude to it. But even if they are and they're a step above League One, it's still a really impressive feat to go as close as they did, and they really, really troubled Newcastle. And I'll bring you back in on that second goal, Iwata. It's one of the best goals I've seen all season.
Yeah, absolutely, Meg. I mean, they did really well, Birmingham, to take the lead as early as they did through Laird, and that was a decent finish, itself. And then they got pegged 2-1 behind, and then 5 minutes before half time, as you mentioned, that Iwata. What a strike from distance, right into the corner of the goal, past Nick Pope as well. What a thunderbolt. Proper equaliser, proper finish. Amazing. And then that set up, as you mentioned, that set up a very tasty second half, really. But what an end to that first half for Birmingham. What a strike, Iwata. The Japanese international, great strike. Absolutely great strike, really. And Birmingham really well to push Newcastle all the way. It was proper end-to-end at times, actually proper fiery as well. But probably it's a late winner, really, that did it for Birmingham. Joe Willock, with a nice finish between the keeper's legs that saw Newcastle take victory, and they progressed to the next round. But Birmingham certainly, you mentioned there that they're basically our championship club, but they put in a very impressive display against a very good Newcastle side.
Yeah. Oh, obviously, yeah. As much as obviously it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? Saying obviously they're not really a League One team in terms of quality and the players they've got, but they put an amazing showing for themselves, and they deserve a lot of credit because they were superb in the game, and they went awfully close. It was those sort of fine margins. The goal, was it over the line? Was it not over the line? Can the linesman see it from where he is? I'm not convinced on that, and we'll get to a refereeing decision. I'm definitely not convinced on in the second half of the podcast. A bit of foreshadowing there, but I wasn't exactly convinced by the linesman's decision there, and it was all a bit tight. The third goal, that the winner was through the goalkeeper's legs. Could he sort of shut his legs a little bit quicker? It's those sort of tight margins at both ends. A scrappy goal as well for Newcastle, the other one, and Birmingham's first a little bit scrappy in itself. It was those sort of fine margins in the game, and there was a lot of flashpoints and aggro and that sort of thing as well. That it was a proper FA Cup tie, and with the Premier League time coming out, the Premier League side, I beg your pardon, coming out on top in the end. But that only tells not even half the story of what was a really entertaining, ferocious FA Cup game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the one of the other games involving the League One side was Wigan. This one dibbed the second young derby. Ryan, of course, for Fulham, Stephen for Wigan. Neither player actually played on the pitch at the same time, but the Premier League outfit again came on top in this one. I think this one it was a bit more not quite as close as the other two times we just spoke about in detail. Fulham coming away this one with a 2-1 victory, but a good goal from Smith. What was the equaliser, but Fulham then just nicked a goal 5 minutes later. But Wigan, I think good to see them, battling against the Premier League side, but ultimately quality showed, I think, Jamie.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And it was an unbelievable goal. You sort of alluded to it there. Johnny Smith, he sort of just cracked one even further out than Iwata did in that Birmingham game. So that was a really good goal. And they got themselves level. And it's, again, not to sound like a broken record, but with Orient and Birmingham and then with Wigan here, they've all shown good accounts for themselves and for League One. And it's a great advert for the division that these teams can go up against Premier League opposition and fight and bring close games. And 2-1, that's a narrow old scoreline, isn't it? And they've got the game level. Obviously, Mooney's scored both goals for Fulham, and they've gone close. And the next one we'll talk about is another team in Wycombe against Championship opposition who went close again to causing an upset. So it's all good signs that these League One sides are going so close to beating those higher league opposition, even when the odds stacked so far against them with no replays and extra time and penalties and that sort of thing, that they have gone so close to causing upsets.
Yeah, we'll move on to Wycombe now. Now under the leadership of Mike Dodd, still very high in the League One table. This wasn't against Premier League opposition as the other games have been. This was against Championship opposition in Preston. You mentioned that they battled hard. They actually battled really hard to push all the way for penalties. So, all the way through 90 minutes, all the way through the 30 minutes of extra time, and then unfortunate to lose 4-2 in the penalty shootout. So that does mean that all four of the League One clubs, four of the League One clubs that played on Saturday in the FA Cup were all knocked out of the FA Cup. And so the last chance that League One has in progressing to the next round of the FA Cup is through Exeter, who play on Tuesday against Nottingham Forest. We'll not go into too much detail, but what do you reckon, Jamie? Do you reckon they can do it for League One, or are you not so confident?
It's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? If anything, as difficult, maybe even more difficult than the Man City game. Obviously, we know City are sort of, as much as they've got those superstar footballers, they're not in good form at the minute. As Nottingham Forest are probably, apart from Liverpool, who are at time of recording losing to Plymouth. Obviously, you'll know the result of that by the time you listen to this, but Nottingham Forest are one of the most informed teams in the Premier League. They're right up at the top, so it's going to be a really difficult game. The Tuesday night, I don't think helps either, really. It's a real shame it's been moved to a Tuesday. So I think it's going to be a difficult one, and it is a shame if, obviously, they do drop out, that all League One teams are out of the competition, and there's no real lower league representation at all. Doncaster being League Two, the lowest ranked team left in it. So that is a shame, sort of as an overall point. But drawn against all five of them, drawn against teams above them in the pyramid, and to all four so far to go so close to victory, or at least pushing to extra time to penalties in Wycombe's case, is an impressive sign, even if perhaps no one will get through come the end of it.
Yeah, there we go. So Jamie, very, I agree. In fairness, I think, Forest are on a blind. I want to see League One doing well, but yeah, Forest have got the momentum, they've got the form. So an Exeter victory is very unlikely. But I hope they do fly the League One flag.
We hope we're wrong.
We hope we're wrong, absolutely, but they'll put up a fight, that's for sure. So that's all the FA Cup games out of the way involving the League One side. We'll now switch our attention to the league matter. And what a game we have here in terms of Bolton facing Crawley Town. Stephen Schumacher, his first home game in charge, and a 7-goal thriller, Jamie.
Yeah, unbelievable, this game. I think I watched the extended highlights, about 11, 12 minutes, and 2 minutes was the first half, which showed, I think, the story of the game, of a very slow, steady, not really happening much football-wise, attacking-wise in the first half. And then the second half, it absolutely exploded. There's a few, actually a lot of interesting bits and threads to pick out of the game, because there's so many different sort of stories and incidents to it. But Crawley took the lead initially. Hepburn Murphy He was a superb player. I've got a question related to him I'm going to ask you by the time we sort of go through the detail of the game. But that was a nice finish. Set it out into the far corner, and then it was too easy for Bolton to get back in it. The equaliser, it was really shoddy defending. It's so easy to put the cross into the box. It was a header some 6 yards out, and the cross came in way too easily, which was the signs of things to come in terms of Crawley's defending throughout the game. But they got back in front and then made it 3-1. So they were in front 1-0 and then 3-1, and then it all went a bit crazy. Hepburn Murphy was the one who got his brace to make it 3-1, and then a quick free kick. Crawley sort of fell asleep at the back, brought Bolton back into the game. Then there was a really silly red card. I don't know if you've seen that, but he didn't even bother looking at the referee. He'd already been booked, and it was always he just took out his man, missed the ball by about 2 weeks, and cleared out his man who was running about to run into the box, Feely. So that was a really, I think, a silly decision for him to make to slide in there. So that was a red card, and from 3-2, it's 3-3, and then the winner in 90 plus 9 was pandemonium sort of scenes in the home end. I listened. There was a nice clip of the BBC Radio Manchester commentary over the top of it, and it was a really it's one of those huge moments for Bolton. And in Schumacher's first home game in charge, it's a real sort of statement in terms of probably not the manner of the victory in terms of you're facing a team down the bottom of the table. You expect to win a lot easier than 4-3 scoring in the last minute, but the manner of the character that they show to come back into the game 3-1 down and to clinch it right at the death, I think that shows a lot of character and a lot of positives mentality-wise for Bolton. And yeah, I mean, I'll put both feet in on Crawley's defending in a minute, but I think it's positive signs for Bolton in terms of the mental side of the game, fighting back, and they're level on points for the playoffs now.
Yeah, which I think is incredible, because given sort of just a few weeks ago, they seem to be, just on this rut of form. Ian Evatt, major questions being asked about him. Obviously, he was then eventually sacked, and Schumacher's come in. And they lost narrowly to Reading last week, and yeah, you mentioned in terms of the character and the desire to come from behind and to come on top in a 7-goal thriller, courtesy of a last-minute winner. I think it's incredible, and that is sort of hopefully could be a good start of things to come for Steven Schumacher. Yeah, they're in 7th place now. just 1 place off the playoff, but they are actually on the same points as you mentioned. So that's really, in terms of, I guess, the progress we've seen, in just in the past few weeks. That Schumacher's got to a great start, at home at the tough sheets, and he'll just be hoping for more of that, really. As for Crawley, this is a sort of another example to show why they are down at the bottom. That they were 3-1 up in the 54th minute, and then they've lost the game 4-3. Including having a man sent off for, as you said, sort of a silly red card in the very latter stages of the game. The sort of, I don't know, it's almost like they're pressing the self-destruct button. It just doesn't really make sense. How does a team, be in such a stable winning position to end up losing the game by the margin that they did? It's confusing, and it's not great at all, really, especially with all the other teams around them. We'll come on to Shrewsbury, very soon, but the teams around the bottom are all picking up good results, and Crawley had a good result in the side, and in the end, I've got nothing from the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult one to sort of really stick your finger on. Their defence is abysmal. Only Peterborough have got a worse defence, and we all know how dire their defensive work has been this season. They're 6 points from safe for their quality, and this is the interesting bit. So obviously that's only 2 wins, and they've got 1 or 2 games in hand on everyone. So they're actually exactly in the mix and sort of level with everyone else around them in terms of the teams fighting to stay in the division. But at the end of the day, I just can't see Crawley doing it, because that defence is so fragile. It's like you poke it with a stick and the whole thing collapses, and it's like a house of cards, that defence at times. All 4 goals are at least a little bit preventable, in terms of it was sort of panic stations at the end. In the 99th minute, it's all just a bit chaotic. But as I say, the first one, it was too easy, the cross coming in, a bit of luck on on Sheehan's goal with a deflection in and around. But if that hadn't have gone in, it was going to be a penalty because the Crawley defender came and sort of swept him out as he was putting the ball in the back of the net. And then the free kick that was quickly taken, short free kick that Crawley had sort of fell asleep at the back, not expecting it at all. And it's just not positive signs. They just seem to be so lax defensively and so just, I don't know how many adjectives you want to put on it, but they're just not good enough defensively. And they're not going to have to stay in the division. They've scored goals. Hepburn Murphy's a fantastic player. They've scored 3 goals in this game. They had a 4-4 not too long ago. So they're scoring plenty. They just can't keep them out. And that's what will get them relegated at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's all good scoring these goals, but the biggest thing is to keep goals out, and ultimately that they're not being able to do that. So they're going to struggle massively. You mentioned that Hepburn Murphy grabbing 2. He got the player of the match in the game. Grabbing 2. How important is he if Crawley have any chance? You mentioned that they've got a few games in hand. How important will he be in these games in hand for Crawley?
Yeah, I mean, he's superb, isn't he? I'm glad you sort of bring up that question because he's a fantastic player. He's very flashy. He's got a really good turn of pace, hasn't he? That's what you always remember about him. And they played Lincoln early on in the season. I think he got a brace in that game, or at least one. And he just showed his pace and his agility. He's just so easy to watch as a footballer. And he's one of those. I think if Crawley go down, as I've just sort of put my flag to the mast saying they are going to do, there's no way he's staying in League Two because he's way too good a player. He's he's up there in terms of the wingers in the division for me. I think he's a really sort of capable footballer, and there's no reason why you can't go on to better things when he's at a team like Crawley that are struggling. I'm really impressed with him sort of overall, and he's the cog in that machine that is the only reason or the only potential reason that you could see them staying up. It's all through him for me. But yeah, I still don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think he's sort of playing as like a second striker behind Tyrese John Jules, and he's proven, great asset really to Crawley. League One is the highest level he's played at, but he's getting goal contributions, and that's really important for a club at sort of the bottom end, the wrong end of the table, and he's going to be crucial.
No,
I think for Crawley.
I'm glad you said that. Actually, I guess I misspoke a little bit. Yeah, he's more of a second striker than anything else, isn't he?
Yeah. But still, sort of attacking position. But as for Bolton, I think this win is massive, and I think all the sort of I don't know, the rumblings and the bad atmosphere that was going on a few weeks ago has just sort of disappeared in a flash, really, and things are starting to look very, very positive for Bolton, and yes, they had to work hard for this victory, but at the end of the day, they've come away with 3 points, and they are now level, as we've said, on points with a playoff position, which is probably exactly where we expected Bolton to be, there or thereabouts, and that's where they are.
Yeah, no, exactly that, and they've shown they've got the quality and the, as I mentioned a couple of times already, the mental side of it, which I think is so crucial, as well as we all know how good they are ability-wise, and they've got a great squad, one of the better in the division, but that other side of the game seemed to be lacking, didn't it, in those latter stages of Ian Everett's tenure. And now under Stephen Schumacher, we sort of breathed new life into Bolton already.
Absolutely, yeah. Quick start under his reign already. We'll move on to another big side in the league. This side not doing as well. That's Rotherham United at home to Shrewsbury Town. I sort of teased this a little bit earlier on in that Shrewsbury are in their bottom 4, but are picking up good results, and they've done exactly that against Rotherham, Jamie.
Yeah, exactly that. Their first back-to-back wins in 2 years.
Mega.
And the first away win under Gareth Ainsworth as well, which is the other interesting part of it. And what a victory this was, really. It looked like a proper sort of classic away performance. They're very difficult to play against. And I thought the interesting part of that is that's usually what you say about a Steve Evans team. And at the minute, Steve Evans, Rotherham are easy to play against, and Shrewsbury are awfully difficult to try and break down and beat. They obviously took the lead. Taylor Perry with the goal, and then he turned provider for John Marquis's winner after Rotherham got themselves level, and it was just a minute after the equaliser that Shrewsbury went back in the lead, which is, I guess, just shows. I don't want to be sort of mentality. I stand a bit like Jake Humphries, but that is the other side of it, isn't it? That they've come straight out of conceding and gone and scored straight away. And John Marquis is a real leader in that team. He's obviously been around the block a few times. He's showing his quality as a goal scorer again, and he's so important to that team. And Taylor Perry was a really important part of this victory as well. Been a little bit in and out of the team as far as I'm aware, but he's sort of showed himself quality-wise here. A goal and an assist for him, and was really sort of important in that victory. It was a slow first half, a frantic second. We all said that about the Bolton Crawley game. He was important. Taylor Perry, as I mentioned, and then Marquis as well, are the two men for me in this one that just epitomise where Shrewsbury are at the minute in terms of battling a very Gareth Ainsworth sort of team, and they're edging ever closer to safety. Just 4 points now.
Yeah, I absolutely concur with that. Yeah, two sort of, I don't know, two traditional managers in Gareth Ainsworth and Steve Evans coming head to head, both at the wrong end of the table. But it's probably the team that are in the worst position that have come out of this one better looking. In terms of Shrewsbury, you mentioned the strike force there. They've got that Marquis and Lloyd up top with Perry just behind the two, and Perry, as you said, grabbing a goal and assist. And I think the key thing for Shrewsbury is, they got the open through Perry, and then 10 minutes later, Rotherham got the equaliser, and then just a minute later, they went on to grab the second, and which turned out to be the winner. That's mega, really, isn't it? Because especially with Rotherham being at home, that the fans are on the side. They have their equaliser. Perhaps they'd have thought they could have gone and won the game, but to come back just a minute later. That's great character, great mentality to get the winner. It's incredible, really. Just a few weeks ago, we were chatting that Shrewsbury were in real danger, but Gareth Ainsworth has worked wonders, hasn't he, really, in his last few weeks, picking up some really good results that perhaps we didn't see coming at all, and that's a sign of a side that have got a chance.
Exactly that. I know when they played Mansfield last time we talked on the podcast, and there was a man down, a goal down, and came out and won it. And it's just that siege mentality, the real sort of battling performance that they keep putting in game after game. And it's exactly what Rotherham need to spin it their way, that they need to sort of put in performances like that where they can just fight and battle to get 3 points. But they've only got one win in 5. And any dreams that they were edging closer and closer to those playoffs are suddenly disappearing again because they just can't string results together. It's to the top and bottom of it. They can't keep putting in performances like Shrewsbury at the minute. They just week after week are churning out big performances and putting their hearts on their sleeves, really sort of fighting is the best word for it, for 3 points every Saturday, and Rotherham just aren't.
Yeah, and we, in terms of Rotherham, we mentioned a few weeks ago in terms of sort of playing two false nines in Green and Wilkes. Wilkes not involved in this one. Not sure if it's an injury or not. We'll wait and see. Hopefully he'll be back for Rotherham, given he's sort of been a star player in a few weeks. But in his absence, they've gone back to playing a more out and out number 9 in Sam Nombe up front. But he's not really delivered, and they actually end up bringing off Jordan Hugill at half time to then sort of play 2 up top. So, slightly change things, but even that couldn't warrant an attack. So, Rotherham certainly need to get a good run of form together. It's really weird because they're going on a really good run, and then they just haven't been, the past few results haven't been great for them. And then I'm sure they're going to go back on another good run, but it's inconsistency, which Rotherham and Steve Evans just will not want, and it's not really going to get them anywhere. But that is now, in all competitions, that's 3 defeats on the bounce. They lost in midweek to Bradford in the EFL Trophy, and last weekend lost to Birmingham as well. We know Birmingham are a good side, but still 3 defeats on the bounce. So it could be a concern for Steve Evans.
Yeah, of course, and I don't really have too much to add to that. You really summarised it sort of perfectly, in that they're just a worry at the minute, not in terms of relegation. No one's going as far as that, and they will be nowhere near that battle.
Yeah.
But they're going to be nowhere near the playoff battle if they continue like this. And we thought they'd turned a corner, really, didn't they? They looked like they were on the up, but all of a sudden they're back to where they were in terms of putting in bad performances and just losing games that if they are going to reach the playoffs, that they have to be winning. But that wasn't the case on Saturday.
Absolutely not. That concludes the first half. We're just going to take a short break and then we'll be back to discuss the rest of the results in League One. Hello and welcome back to the League One Lowdown review episode with myself, Seb Jones, joined by Jamie Johnson as ever. We've chatted about sides towards the bottom end in terms of the league table rankings. We're now going to move to chat about sides towards the top, and we'll start with a game that I was at Stockport versus Barnsley, 12:30 kickoff on Saturday afternoon. A few weeks ago, this was looking, like two playoff contenders going against each other. I think at the time it maybe fourth versus fifth. It ended up being fifth versus 10th, I think, at the time the game was played. And pretty disappointing one from a Barnes point of view anyway. Stockport continue to impress, Jamie.
Exactly that. They've got 5 wins in a row, and after that sort of bad end to 2024, and it took them a couple of games to get going in the new year with Louis Barry obviously exiting, and they're only they're up there. They're in fourth, 6 points off the automatics. It's not out of the question at all that they can keep pace with those teams right at the very top, and they're doing really well. Probably the opposite of Barnsley at the minute, who are 5 without a win, 4 losses in that stretch of 5 games, and all of a sudden they're, as you say, Seb, down in 10th. Admittedly, only 4 points off the playoffs. They're not out of it by any means. They're still in that mix, but there's a lot of teams in that mix, and Stockport are at the very top of that section of the table.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Stockport, I think, were immense, really. I think the first, we mentioned in terms of, there seems to be a recurring theme, the first 20 minutes, I think there was nothing in it, really. There's no action at all, sort of two sides cancelling each other out. And then Stockport on half hour managed to grab 2 goals within a space of 4 minutes, which shows quickly sort of how a game can turn. And that's exactly what happened. Tanto Alafe opened the scoring after a long ball over the top. Donovan Pines not able to deal with it, finished nicely by Alafe. And then a few minutes later, there was a foul by Josh Earl. One of those where there was contact, but a lot of times, sort of, I don't know, you see a corner awarded, but the player's gone down, made the most of it. But yeah, penalty, and then Collar has stepped up and dispatched the penalty. But for me, I think we'll come to Barnsley in a second. I think the Stockport midfield was really impressive. Ollie Norwood and Lewis Bate only being 22, and obviously Norwood very experienced, 33 years of age. I think that combination really nicely. A couple of intricate passes between each other. Norwood's set piece delivery is superb as well. The amount of time, even just in open play, sort of just produced a crossfield pass, from to the either wing back. I think that was immense, and that they proved a real sort of good partnership in the middle, and they have been for quite a few weeks, really. And then, the two guys at top, Alafe and Wootton, proved a bit of a handful to the Barnsley defence. But definitely the two midfielders stood out for me from a Stockport point of view. And I know you're going to ask me about Barnsley now, but I dread to answer whatever you're going to ask me.
Well, I mean, first on Oliver Norwood, I'm pleasantly surprised, really, on that assessment of him, because I know when they played Lincoln, it was I think it was Halloween weekend, or it was October anyway. And he was a passenger in the game. Came on, I think, early on for an injury they had in midfield, Stockport, and he looked like he'd left his legs at Sheffield United, sort of thing. In that game, he was miles off the pace of the match. So that's an interesting one for me. Before I give you the awful question, I have to ask you about Barnsley, and that does surprise me in a way about Oliver Norwood, that he's sort of keeping pace and even more so shining in a game like that.
Yeah. A bit like you, I was really surprised. In the reverse fixture, I knew he did play, but again, he didn't really stand out as such. Only really from set pieces when he sort of had that wicked ball delivery in. But yeah, absolutely was a standout for sure. Him alongside Bate in that centre of the park for Stockport. Yeah, proved a lot of really nice intricate passes and sort of just nice 1-2s and. it did stand out, and it shows he's still got that quality. And what a coup for Stockport to have a player like him and his experience that he brings.
Well, I guess on Barnsley then, before we move on, there's been a lot of talk about the other end of it, the transfers, and the director of football, sporting director, and put whatever name you want to put to it, came out and did a bit of an interview, didn't he, with the club, and said he backed Darrell Clarke. And it seems like what you read, that the fans are very unhappy about that assessment. They don't think he has backed Darrell Clarke. Interesting to see where you sit on that front. And it's worth mentioning as well, obviously on deadline day, let the goalkeeper go. That live on our deadline day stream, that you were with us and thought Sam was pulling your leg, that he was making it up. Obviously, didn't turn out to be the case, that he had left the goalkeeper. But how do you see it overall in terms of the transfer windows and everything around? Obviously, we can bring up stats about how bad things are on the pitch at the minute, but just the club in general. What's your assessment?
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a lull at Barnes at the minute. Having had such a good run of form over Christmas and coming into 2025, things were on the up, really. Positive results against Peterborough, Bolton, Wrexham. Start of the year, ended the year, and started the year really nicely. And then things have taken a bit of a turn for the worse in the past few weeks. It's not been great to watch. On the pitch, off the pitch, I think it was pretty well known that Barnsley needed a striker, and all this window, and it took until deadline day to bring someone in, and that someone was Clement Rodriguez, who came in from Bastion in the French second division, and he's only scored 4 goals in 17 games or something like that. Like, his scoring record just isn't great. And he started the game against Stockport, but was hooked off after 45 minutes. And Neil Ferrugia, the left back, was put in his place up front. And I think if that doesn't tell you that Barnsley needs a striker, even still after the window, I'm not quite sure what does. There's been rumours, well, not rumours. Darrell Clarke come out and said that he's had a Zoom meeting with a free agent in the past week. So there'll be more news on that next week. Free agents, I'm not quite sure where I stand on that, because sometimes they're coming in not necessarily in full fitness and ready to get.
They're coming in cold, aren't they? They're taking time to get up to speed, and when you need someone to come in and make an instant impact, it's the opposite, really, isn't it?
Exactly that, yeah. And so, we've had Wax Waters out with an injury. Fabio Jallo's been out for a while as well, and Stephen Humphrey's missed the Stockport game with illness as well. So not only were we already needing some options up front, we've now had a couple of injuries to our sort of attacking options that have meant that we now are even more desperate for some options up front. So I think that's the main point, really, in terms of that striker. We went on quite a good run, and chances were being created, just weren't being scored. Cosgrove's gone on loan to Stockport, so I think he'll just play second fiddle to Button in terms of their striking options. So yeah. Ladden's come out, and the sporting director's come out and said he's backed Darrell Clarke. But I look at the bench against Stockport. It had 3 wing-backs, 1 midfielder in Benson, who has hardly played this year because of injury, 1 centre-half, McCarthy, and then a 20-year-old striker. Like, it's not ideal at all, really. And I know we've had a few injuries, but I think that's on the club to prepare for these injuries. Not that you want anyone to ever get injured, but it has to be taken into consideration, and that's just not happened. But a couple of important games coming up. Huddersfield, obviously, next Saturday, and then the Saturday after against Rotherham. So 2 tricky fixtures coming up in what has already been a pretty disappointing run of form for Barnsley. So and Keeler Dunn, I guess his goal was probably the only saving grace in the last minute. A nice sort of curling finish, trademark Keeler Dunn, if you like, that we've not seen for 3 weeks. So it's good to see him on the score sheet. But it seems to be a bit of a lull and a bit of negativity around the club at the minute. But if they can get 2 results in the next 2 games, I think that'll be a bit of a boost. And then you are a bit like Bolton, then you're back in the mix.
So football changes quickly, doesn't it? That's the.
Exactly that, yeah. I mean, there's been some rumours about that sacking Darrell Clarke. I don't think that's the option at all. Like, yes, he set up with a 4 back four that is at the start of the first half, and then changed that to a 5 at half time, and we did play better second half. And him himself came out and said, like, that first half was on me. I set up to what I thought back four and a diamond, and what he thought was going to sort of counteract Stockport, but it didn't. But I like that. I like that managers come out and held his hand up and not blame to his players. Exactly, but I don't think 45 minutes when he's got one tactic wrong is sacking worthy. Like, and I know results have been great, but it's not all on him. I think Darren Clark's a great manager, and I think some of the players have got to step up a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just to clean up a couple of bits before we move on to our final game. You mentioned obviously the striker you brought in, Rodriguez. The stats for him at Bastia is 20 appearances and 4 goals in all competitions, and in Liga 2 it's 17 and 3. So not exactly great numbers. But the surprise for me was that you let Sam Cosgrove go. In that, I know he's not played a lot of football, but Max Watter's out injured. You've not got many striker options anyway. Never mind letting one go.
Yeah, exactly that, and to a player rival as well. Well, what we hope is a player rival. So I'm not quite sure on that one. And as Sam Cosgrove's contract is actually at the end of the season, comes up at the end of the season. So I think we've seen the last of him in a Barnsley shirt. I think he's not really been what Barnsley have looked for since coming in, sort of limited substitute appearance. But nevertheless, he was an option up front rather than a 20-year-old Josiah Dyer, who was sort of just making up numbers, I think, on the bench on Saturday. So, yeah, that was certainly an interesting one. I think it was always it was reported that Darren Clark wanted him out. It was just about a case of finding the right move and getting in that other replacement, which they did in Rodriguez. So, yeah, interesting one. And obviously Stockport have got another striking option as well in that. We move on from Barnsley. Enough of Barnsley talk for, I've got my frustrations, got my venting out. We move to Lincoln City. So moving from a game that I was at to a game you were at, Lincoln City at home to Cambridge United. Not quite as fiery and as not as many goals as some of the other games we spoke about on the podcast so far, but a point apiece. Is that about fair, Jamie?
Yeah, I think so. Lincoln City were the much the better team in the first half and should have been out of sight, really. Freddie Draper scored, sort of got the goal to back up his new contract he signed in the week. The academy product is signed on until the summer of 2028, and he played really well in that first half. He was everything that came to him. He handled his back to goal. He was superb. The hold-up play against Michael Morrison, who he's a big old centre half, an experienced centre half, and he held his own. Did Freddie Draper. He got his goal that he deserved. Probably should have had 2, perhaps even 3. And that is sort of the story of Lincoln's first half and of the season as a whole, because they're making all these chances and they're not putting them in the back of the net. And you can make all the chances you like. If you don't score them, then it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And Michael Skubala pretty much said the same in his post-match. He said the game summed up, epitomised the season so far, and I think that was the perfect descriptor for it, really, because it was a match that was nearly for Lincoln, that has just been their season. They took the lead, should have scored, as I say, 2 or 3. They should have been out of sight by half time, and then they allow Cambridge back in. It's a bit of a fluky goal. They hit it from the edge of the box, and it deflects in off Sean Rowan and goes into the bottom corner. It could have gone out the ground, it could have gone into the goalkeeper's hands, could have gone anywhere. And it ended nestled in the corner, that's the unlucky part. But the defence wasn't. No one closed him down. Rico Hackett, I think it's harsh to dig him out. And at BBC Radio Lincolnshire, they asked the question specifically to Michael Skubala about is the goal avoidable. Rico Hackett wasn't tracking his man, and I think it's hard to single him out because I think as much as he didn't track his man, the defenders didn't come out to the danger.
Yeah.
Adam Jackson, centre half, sort of covered his team's back by saying if it goes out for a corner or a goal kick, no one's questioning the defending. It's the fact that it's gone in. Obviously, people question the defending. But that, for me, was a little bit of a blip. And just before half-time, it's a real killer time to concede, isn't it? Use that old cliche.
Yeah.
In the second half, it was a completely different game because Cambridge came out near enough on fire. They were miles the better team in the second half. Lincoln did nothing after the break. One chance for James Collins that he missed. And it was all Cambridge. They probably should have won it. They had a shot and attempting injury time right at the end of the game. The cross came over and he nodded it straight at the goalkeeper, who made a good save actually, just to get on the end of it and block it with his body. Zach Geacock in goal, but honestly, it was a messy second half, a chaotic game in the end. The red card, I guess we'll cover in a second. But it was just that they were completely different halves. They played so well in the first half, Lincoln. Draper was superb. And in the second half, it's like they'd stayed in the changing room, really, because they did nothing in that second 45 minutes. And what they struggle with, and I guess I'll put this point back to you. You talked about Stevenage last week in terms of being a team that's hard to play against, play unattractive football, if you like. But we had Blackpool a couple of weeks ago at Sincil Bank, who made the game tricky. They broke the game up, and it was a Steve Bruce away performance game. And this one from Cambridge, second half, they slowed the game down. The stodgy was the word Michael Scribali used, just killed off the momentum of the game. And as soon as a team does that against Lincoln, it's like they just wilt away. As soon as a team tries to make the game a bit physical, a bit aggressive, a bit nasty, a proper game of football, if you like, they just get scared, it seems to me. And that's the issue. I think that they struggle with that sort of game. And you get a lot of those games in League One. You get a lot of teams that are willing just to grind you down and win at all costs. And Lincoln are really struggling against that sort of team.
Yeah, and especially for a team like Cambridge, who are rooted to the bottom of the table, every point for them matters, really. Anything that they can grab and anything they can do just to hold on to any leads or just any points, which was the case against Lincoln. They've just got to do what they can to just keep the score sort of in their moderate favour, really. So yes, it might be unattractive, but ultimately it gets them the results, and they're just horrible. Those sort of sides can just be horrible to play against. But ultimately, it means you hang on to a result, and that Cambridge will not care that they've got a result, and sometimes you have to play ugly to get something out of games, and that's exactly what Cambridge did, really. You mentioned this a little bit earlier in terms of the red card that was given to Joseph Gardner. Now, I've seen this clip doing the rounds on socials, and I think it's caused quite a bit of controversy. What do you reckon?
Well, it's an unbelievable decision. Joe Gardner on loan from Nottingham Forest, attacking midfield. This is his first game, came off the bench, and within 4 minutes, and it just, to me, it sort of felt like he's full of energy, obviously, coming on, making his debut. I'm going to make a good impression. He's running forward, sort of oversteps slightly. He's lunging at the ball and hits his man, Brophy. It's a booking. It's a booking. There's no doubt about that. But it's never in a million years a red card. He has caught him, and as I say, yellow card. But a red card, it is a shocker of a decision, and he's devastated. He walked. Obviously, he was on our side of the ground. He's walking off. He looked like he was in tears. He was absolutely devastated, and the crowd gave him a really warm round of applause, which I thought was a lovely touch. And obviously, the team will get around him and get him back up. I don't know if they're going to appeal it. I feel like it's one you should appeal because it was as I say, a really shocking decision. And it was only given, in my view, and Michael Scribala said the same, and Adam Jackson said the same post-match, that it was only given because of where it happened on the pitch, because it happened as close as I am to my laptop, was the challenge to Gary Monk. It was near, it was right in front of the dugout, and Gary Monk and all the coaches and all the bench, they were up straight away, and it was the theatre of it, if you like. It wasn't a good tackle, as I say, yellow card, but it was right in front of the dugout. And if it happens on the opposite side of the pitch, then you don't get everyone up in arms and they're shouting at the official. The fourth official was on the pitch. There was a bit of a to-do in the mid, like with Ben House sort of wrestling with someone off the ball. It was all just a manic minute. And right in front of the dugout, for me, is the only reason it was a red rather than a yellow. And the linesman talked to the referee before he made the decision. But as I say, a really shocking decision. And I'll put it in the when we put out on Twitter and socials the podcast. I'll attach the video underneath it because I've not seen anyone say it is a red card. Of all the people I spoke to at the game and have seen online afterwards, I don't think anyone, even Cambridge fans, were saying that's never a red. And that tells you all you need to know, doesn't it?
And also, I'm not quite sure if I sort of it's the angle that I saw or what, but I'm sure that Brophy actually got a touch on Gardner. I think there was some, again, not red card worthy or yellow card worthy. I just think it took me a couple. I watched it a few times. It took me a couple of times to realise sort of which one was the Lincoln player. I think he ended up on the ground, but he was the one that was sent off. So I'm not a red card at all, really. But it's one of those where I don't know, somehow the FA will twist it. And I don't think there's grounds of appeal as such. I think it's one of those you just have to suck up and just move on and go without play for a game, really. I'm not quite sure. I don't. It could be a waste of an appeal, in my opinion. It probably does deserve an appeal, but it's one of those sort of borderline ones where it's a yellow, but I don't know. Some referees are, often treated it more harshly, and I bet that is impacted by the pressure from Gary Monk, shall we say, on the touchline. So but that's what they say in football. If you don't shout for it, you don't get it. So clearly that's what Gary Monk's done. So, but nevertheless, a point apiece, and Cambridge, one loss in 5, and they're in good form, but just not as good a form as the teams that are above them. The other teams above them have more of a chance, like Shrewsbury that we mentioned earlier, in terms of getting out of the relegation spots which they currently find themselves in. So the result is a good result, but not good enough as things stand, would you say, Jamie?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Obviously, conscious of time, I'll sort of keep it short and sweet in that they've only got 1 loss in 5, but they've only got 1 win in 5. They're picking up points, though, which is the important thing. And for Lincoln, they're free without victory. So that is the negative to go along with the positive for Cambridge. It's a better point for Cambridge than it is for Lincoln, is how I'll probably succinctly put it.
Yeah. Nicely done. And then just to finish off the results elsewhere, Charlton beat Stevenage 2-0. Gordon and Berry with a goal apiece in that one, and that puts them into the playoff position. So Charlton heading up in the right direction. Burton drew against Blackpool 1-1, courtesy of a 93rd minute equaliser from Blackpool from Morgan. Burton, though, despite conceding late on, they are now 6 unbeaten. So again, another side in the relegation zone that are on a good run of form. Huddersfield continue their bad run of form, and they drew 0-0 with Reading, and they've got the big Yorkshire derby next Saturday against Barnsley. So that'll be one that they'll be hoping to bounce back on. Meanwhile, on Friday night, Northampton beat Mansfield 1-0. Cameron McGeehan with the goal. So Kevin Nolan's side on a great run of form. Meanwhile, Mansfield are now 5 defeats on the bounce. So not a good look for Nigel Clough.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, to focus on the positive. I know Nigel Clough said he felt sick to the stomach. I think that was the quote after that one, and it was a pretty even game. I spoke to Joel Colson, who is the Football League world writer, Northampton Town representative there. And it's the first time they've won back-to-back games this season, and he described it as an even game overall, but drew out the fact that the new midfield, the Northampton midfield, controlled the game. And I think that's an interesting point, and it's the benefit of speaking to people who are at the games, because you see those little bit of a tidbit that obviously the stats don't show, but they've controlled the midfield, Joel said, and that is a real positive going forward, because they're in that mix in terms of the teams down at the wrong end of the table. Picking up a win like this away from home, perhaps even game, they don't deserve 3 points, but to get it, you just take them. You take it and run, don't you? Sort of smash and grab a little bit, but a really impressive victory on the road. And as much as Mansfield are struggling, they're a decent side, and they've got some good players. They brought in obviously Jordan Rhodes in January. They've got a good team there and a really good manager in Nigel Clough. So it's a really positive victory for Northampton and keeps their head above the water in terms of that relegation battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's about everything, really. Good win for Northampton there. That sums up it for this week. Next week, we'll have a full roster of League One games, so no FA Cup. We've got our fingers crossed for Exeter on Tuesday night. Sam
and there's a lot of league games on Tuesday night as well.
There is, of course, lots to be discussed next week. Yeah, Sam and Callum will be back on the preview podcast later on in the week, but myself myself and Jamie will be back a similar time next week to discuss next weekend's fixtures in the league. But until then, we'll see you soon.